So we're at the point that we're loading the index.html file and we have the app root element here, which happens to be our own component. Now the missing piece is, how do we tell Angular 2 to get started, and how is Angular 2 aware of this component? Does it load all components by default whenever it gets started? Well, let me answer the first question first. How does Angular 2 get started? Well, we don't have some script imports or tags here in the index.html file, but actually the CLI, which we use to manage our project, will dynamically add these script imports whenever we run our application. And we can see this if we have a look at the source code of our running app here. If we go to the Elements tab and have a look at it, we see 3 scripts down here, which clearly are not visible in the index.html file, but they get added during the compilation and build step of our CLI. This is important to keep in mind. So we do have some scripts there. And actually the scripts we do have here are the first 2, which are basically some CLI and third-party package-related scripts. But the main bundle.js is the important one. This one contains our code and all the Angular 2 code and additional third-party package code we need to make our application run. This main bundle.js file also starts our Angular 2 application. Now, how does it start it? Well, here we need the main.ts file. The main.ts file is the first file which gets started by the bundle which we create here. This is one thing you have to remember. It is therefore named main.ts. This file here is executed first. It is of course part of this overall bundle and it is compiled to JavaScript, but this code will run first. Now what does this code do? It bootstraps our application, which means it starts our Angular 2 application. It does this in this single line here. All of the code above are just some imports and then also the check if we are in production or development mode, which kind of changes some debug messages and so on. But then we reach this line here and it is called bootstrap module. It bootstraps our application. It runs our Angular 2 application. Now the bootstrap module method here takes one argument, and this is the module with which we want to start our application. Think of it this way. If you have a bigger application with multiple components, how would Angular 2 know what your main component is? Yes, we have it here in the index.html file, but thankfully by default Angular 2 does not load all components and keep all selectors in mind. That would really hurt performance. Therefore, we need to tell Angular 2, hey, this one component, this is the component which I'll use in the index.html file. Please be aware of that and use that. And we do this in the app module ts file, which is this file getting loaded in the bootstrap method here. So in this app module file, we then have this code, and all that happens here basically is that we bootstrap our app component, and now the circle closes. We bootstrap this app component here, which is the component we had a look at earlier, and therefore we tell Angular 2, hey, this is the component which will start the application, which is the root component of this application, and this root component also probably has the selector you're finding here in the index.html file, so please take this tag here, this element here, and replace it with the template code of the HTML file of this root component, app component in this case. I know these are quite a lot of files we had a look at here, but now we're at the end of this chain. The important takeaway is main.ts is the code which gets run first. This code bootstraps a module, this module here, and in this module we bootstrap the app component ts file. So we tell Angular 2 that this will be our root component, and Angular 2 then has a look at this component, recognizes the selector, and then recognizes the selector in the index.html file and knows, okay, I need to render the components template here. This is how this chain looks like, which gets run at the startup of our application, which gets our application going, And from there on, it's really just about adding components, adding different pieces, and then adding them to your application, and it will work on its own.